Good morning. I'm Huu Nguyen, a seasoned professional engineer with Commercial Building Consultants. We're gathered here to navigate the depths of Florida Senate Bill 4D, a new chapter in building safety that demands our immediate attention. Our time together will be spent unfolding the chapters of this significant legislation, from the context that spurred its creation to its key provisions, and from the crucial milestone inspections to the nuts and bolts of reserve funding. Stay tuned as we unpack these topics and address your questions at the end. So before we get into the technical side of SB4D, I just wanted an opportunity to introduce myself. I have a Master's of Science in Architectural Engineering. I'm licensed in 12 states. I have over 8 years of experience through all types of new construction projects and also remodel and inspection, including adaptive reuse and seismic retrofit. The pictures you see here are from the Woodlark Cornelius Hotel located in Portland, Oregon. This building was constructed originally in 1912, and the project was to update the building to current codes. So a project of this type and scale required hands-on, on-the-ground inspections and assessment of the building in order to know where the building is at currently and also bring it up to current codes. So some background on the bill itself. In the quiet night on June 24th of 2021, a tragedy unfolded that would echo through the halls of Florida's legislature and beyond. The partial collapse of the Champlain Towers south in Surfside claimed 98 lives, leaving us grappling with an unsettling truth. The cause of this calamity remains undetermined, with answers only anticipated by the end of 2024. In the rubble lay not just the remnants of a once thriving community, but also the whispers of warnings that went unheeded. Stories surfaced of residents and visitors who witnessed structural issues, yet, for reasons we're still trying to understand, those alarms did not culminate in action. This narrative underscores an incontrovertible fact. Vigilance in building safety is not optional, and every warning, a potential harbinger, must be met with swift action. As we discuss SB4D, let us carry the weight of these stories and the imperative to act without delay. Senate Bill 4D responds with force and clarity, instituting measures to avert such oversights in the future. It establishes protocols, milestone inspections, and reserve studies that serve as our guardians, as sentinels against the possibility of future disasters. These provisions are more than legal formalities, they are the sinews that fortify the integrity of our buildings. SB 4D sets forth that buildings taller than 3 stories undergo thorough inspections at critical junctures in their lifespan. At 30 years or at 25 years for those within a whisper of the coastline, within 3 miles of the coastline, these structures must receive their first milestone inspection, with a continued commitment to inspection every decade thereafter. It's a regimen, a disciplined and necessary rhythm to ensure the heartbeat of our buildings remains strong. Now we're going to go into the milestone inspection scope. The scope of these inspections is comprehensive. They start with a visual assessment, which is the milestone 1 inspection, conducted with a keen eye by licensed professionals. When necessary, a deeper dive, which is the milestone 2, follows, peering into the very peering into the very sinew of the structures. Findings are meticulously documented with clear paths charted for any remedial actions. Associations, here is your mandate: to arrange, to act, and to maintain records. Transparency is the bedrock of trust in our stewardship. So unfortunately, the timeline is not our friend, but a formidable force, with over 90,000 associations clamoring for a finite pool of qualified professionals. With inspections taking anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, we must be proactive. The original deadline of December 31st, 2024 has been graciously extended by SB 154 to December 31st, 2025, acknowledging the gravity of the task at hand and also the low supply of licensed professionals offering this service. So here we talk about the structural reserve funding. That's part of the SB 4D. The reserve funding requirement is our blueprint for tomorrow's safety. Conducted every decade, these studies forecast the financial trajectory needed for upkeep and repair, laying the groundwork for sound fiscal health. As of December 31st, 2024, you must have your strategies mapped out, your funds allocated. This isn't merely about compliance, it's about ensuring your sanctuary remains steadfast in the face of time and tide. At CBC, our approach is grounded in more than expertise. It's rooted in a shared human experience. We're not just looking at blueprints and figures, we're looking out for you. Our seamless approach from consultation to completion of inspections ensures you're never navigating these waters alone. The urgency to begin is underscored by a stark reality. Demand outstrips supply. As your engineering partner, I bring a wealth of expertise in concrete construction and seismic retrofitting, exemplified by my work on the historic Woodlark Hotel. That positions us to tackle SB4D's demands head on. Finally, thank you for entrusting your time and your building's future into this discussion. Remember, in the context of building safety, procrastination is not a strategy. Reach out to us at CBC. Let's start this conversation today for the safety and security of your building tomorrow. We are ready to lead the way. And with that, I'd like to open up the discussion to any questions from attendees that we might have. What do you mean by close to water? The requirements of SB4D says any building within 3 miles of coastline. And to clarify, this is ocean coastline. So this wouldn't apply to bodies of water such as lakes or swamps, but specifically ocean coastline. Can you go over the requirements for the buildings as far as age and when they need to be inspected? Yes. So let me go back to one of our slides here. The inspection timeline that sets out the requirements for the buildings. So any building that has received its certificate of occupancy on or before July 1st, 1992. This is sort of the cutoff date set by SP4D, noting that the building has reached 30 years of age. However, again, if the building is located within 3 miles of the coastline, um, any building reaching the age of 25 would be required to have an inspection done and a reserve study completed and in place for each of its residents to access. So for buildings that have a certificate of occupancy of July 1st, 1992, or before that date, a milestone inspection must be completed by December 31st, 2024. At the very least, you must be engaged with a design professional before that cutoff date. So, for example, if that December 31st date passes, but you have a contract to have the milestone inspections done, then you won't be penalized for not having the milestone inspection completed or the reserve studies completed at that date. so long as you have a contract with a licensed professional to have the studies completed in a reasonable time.
Can you give us an example of when it gets into like a phase two, what would happen? Example of where you need further study and what would be involved with that aspect of it? What triggers it and how do you fix it?
Let me go back to the milestone inspection scope. The difference between the milestone 1 and the milestone 2 is the depth of the inspection itself. So milestone 1 is initial visual inspection, and milestone 2 would be a more detailed look at what's underneath. What would trigger the milestone 2 inspection is if we found evidence of severe structural deterioration. An example of that would mean settlement in the foundation, deflection of the concrete beams, cracking, exposure of reinforcement, damage to the structure itself. Those sort of things would be discovered in initial visual inspection. And if they were discovered on site, then that would necessitate the need for a milestone 2 inspection, where we come in with more invasive ways of looking at the underlying structure, which may include radar to take a look at the rebar itself. That may also mean removing some of the finishes to look at the underlying structure. It would be a more intensive inspection than just the visual inspection of the milestone 1.
Here we have, as you know, a lot of spalling concrete. So in your milestone one inspection, you find spalled concrete in, say, balconies or various areas. How does that cascade to milestone two and going forward?
So in the example where we found spalled concrete during the milestone 1 inspection, we would come in with the radar and look at, is there adequate reinforcement in the columns? Is that reinforcement still acting the way it should be? And we'd also look at removing some of the finishes around that area to see if there's any more deterioration of the structure. So that would trigger a more in-depth look at where else in the building we would expect to find structural deterioration.
Got it. And then I guess you issue a report, and then that report, someone has to put a cost associated with the remediation, and who does that?
Yes, so we'd work with estimators to come up with a number of what these repairs would cost after the assessment has been done. We have a full report of what the repairs would look like.
Right. So how long does all this take? Let's say you have a milestone one, a milestone two. What should you, for full contingency, expect between start and finish?
Okay, and this
What
ties
time?
into a question by one of our attendees that
Yeah.
asks, what is the time from signed bid to report in hand? How long would you be on site? We're estimating from the time of receiving the phone call, initiating the conversation, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to getting the final report in hand. Once the conversation has been started with us, that begins the scheduling process. The service is in high demand at this point, and there's a low supply of licensed professionals providing the service. So scheduling the inspection itself may take a few weeks for us to get our professionals out on site. And to answer the question, how long would you be on site? We don't expect the inspection to take any more than a full day of work. So anywhere from 4 to 8 hours on site, depending on the size of the building, whether there's a underground parking, the complexity of the structure itself, and our ability to get in and out of places to inspect the underlying structure. Now, so to answer your question, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to have the final report in hand, which includes the milestone 1 inspection and the structural reserve study. Which brings us to an important point to go over, that there being a deadline set for December 31st, 2024, it's important to allow enough time for these reports to be scheduled, for the inspection to happen, and for the report to be completed in order to meet that deadline. How much disruption would these inspections cause to the residents? So to answer that question, the initial milestone 1 inspection, we do not expect to be a nuisance to the residents. This is a visual inspection where we'll plan beforehand what areas we need to get into, and we'll work with the building managers to allow access into those places. And before we get on site, we have a plan of what we need to see, where we need to go, so that we can execute expeditiously and allow the residents to remain undisturbed. New question comes in, is the deadline December 2024 or 2025? So good question. Originally, SB4D set the deadline for December 2024, though due to the very low supply of licensed professionals offering this service, SB 154 was enacted in order to extend the deadline, allowing us just a little bit more time to get these reports and inspections completed. The question is, if our HOA gets an inspection, are we required to send in the report, or do you all send it in? So as far as the responsibility goes, the HOA is required to hire these licensed professionals to get the inspection and the report completed. They're also required to have a copy of the report available to all residents. Now, the inspection and milestone reports itself would be sent to the state. That's a good question. I believe the building associations are required to send the reports to the states for approval. Now, if there are any comments from the states or based upon the review that needs to be revised, we would work with you one-on-one to get those comments satisfied and the reports approved.
Thank you. You.
Mhm.
You're an engineer?
Yes, I'm a licensed engineer.
Terrific. Yeah, I'll definitely share it with my colleagues for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh.
All right, do we have any other questions from the audience to go over?
Are you local? Are you in the Florida area?
Yeah, CBC is located in Orlando.
Gotcha.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining us today and joining us for this discussion. And if there's any more questions that arise, we do welcome you to reach out to us directly. We'd love a chance to talk to you and explain more about our understanding of this bill and how we could help you be in compliance in order to protect the life safety of our communities. So with that, thank you again. I do appreciate your time and you being here with us.